Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good people, fellow humans. And when I say that, I spell it Huemonds, colorful nuts, because that's what we are. And let's see. Thinking about next Sunday. Well, here we are, Saturday, G.school. Topic of today is why suffering and evil. Why is there suffering and evil in the world? But so why are we here? What are we doing? For those who know, you should immediately answer that question. We are here to help our students and interested students experience this life. Because that's what fundamentally we're doing. If we are made in the image of God and God is spirit, we are not spirit right now. We are baryonic. We have mass. We are made of matter. So we've been given this gift of being alive. So now what? Like all gifts, what you should do is honor the gift of life. So how do we do that? That's the question. How do we honor the gift of life? How do we experience being baryonic in a way that gives honor to the gift, right? So some people could say, La vida loca. It's so short. I'm going to take every second possible to get the most hedonic pleasure, the most Epicurean delights I can out of this. Is that honoring the gift? Perhaps not. So that's what we focus on at G.school during the weekend. So during the week, how do we learn to experience life, or how do we get the most experience from life? Well, our focus is in 4 areas: physical, which is fitness and health; mental, always be learning, understand what's going on around us, within us; emotional, so not only are we physical beings, we are beings that have strong emotions. We need to learn to control the emotions, because if we don't control the emotions, they will control us, and it will send us down a path that we probably don't want to go. And then the last thing is spiritual. The 4th dimension is spiritual. And here for us, that is based on the belief that we have a soul that continues after death, number 1. And number 2, what happens after death is a function of what happened before death, how we lived. And how do we know that? Why do we say it? Well, because the 3rd thing is we believe that Jesus was who he said he was, God in the form of man, fully God. And he said, if you love me, you will obey my commandments. We choose to take that literally. So then we say, well, what are his commandments? And fundamentally, I think all of the commandments fit into 3. Now, when he was asked that question by the Pharisees, he said, all of the other ones hang on these 2. So we're going to just focus on the 2, because that's what he focused on. And then at the end, right before he left, he gave another fundamental basic commandment. So the first one, love God with all your heart and mind and soul. Number 2, love one another as I have loved you. And number 3, make disciples of all nations. Those are the 3 commandments. And then he went on to say, there will be people who say, Lord, Lord, we did all of these things in your name. And he will say, get away from me. I never knew you. Just because you do things in my name doesn't mean you're following my commandments. Aha. Aha. Right there, and there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come puzzles the will. Right. Okay. So if you break it down and make it really simple, get it down to the essence, those are the three things. So Monday through Friday, we focus on the physical, mental, and emotional. Saturdays and Sundays, we focus on the spiritual, which we call G.school. Now, today also happens to be day 6 of week 1 in our neuroscience approach to success. It's not a woo-woo approach to success. It's not a psychology approach to success. It's a neuroscience approach to success. And what does that mean? Well, that means we take it down to a lower than cellular level. We take it down to the cellular level and we say, where do these beliefs, feelings, thoughts, where do they actually exist in reality? A psychological approach to success, a psychology approach to success would focus on the feelings, beliefs, behavior, not where do they actually exist in our bodies, in our brains. So this is an approach that takes it all the way down and say, okay, well, you have these beliefs. Where do they exist? Are they outside of our body? Are they in our body? Oh, they're in our body. Okay, well, are they in our heart? Are they in our hands? Are they saturating our physical being? Are they in all of our trillions of cells? Are they in the bacteria, the mitochondria within us? Where do these things physically exist? Because we know that they didn't always exist. We didn't come pre-programmed. As an infant, we weren't shedding off layers and, oh, there's the knowledge right there. No, this is stuff that comes in. We aren't born knowing math, and as we go to school in kindergarten, in first grade, second grade, we're not peeling back, we're not opening the windows and letting the light of math in. We're learning math. We don't know math. We have the ability to know math, but we don't know it. So, and we know that when we have a stroke, these things that we know go away. So there's good reason to believe all of these things reside in our brain. And we look at them, what's in our brain? Cells, like the rest of our body. And then we look at the different types of cells. We say, oh, that's an interesting type of cell called a neuron, or neuron, as Yuval Harari would say. There are these neurons, and it seems like it doesn't seem these neurons are connected, and they have electrical current, and they also have chemicals that are secreted by one neuron and accepted by another neuron. Then we can see the flow of electricity in neurons, a flow of electricity and chemicals that go from neuron to neuron. We say, aha, that must be it, because now we have tools sophisticated enough to see what's going on. Daniel Amen uses a PET scan. Others are fMRI, and there's all kinds of other ways to see neural activity, stuff going on in our brain. And an active brain is different than a brain that's in a coma. And someone who is brain dead. Okay. So we're halfway through. We haven't even gotten to some of the other parts. So let's look at some of the things we've got going. Okay, advice from an 80-year-old. Think twice before burdening a friend with a secret. And I would say the key word there is burden, because having a secret is a burden. Well, on one level, we want to spread it. We want to tell other people. We want to share it. Information wants to be free, wants to be shared. So on one hand, we want to share it, but we're saying, I'm giving you this juicy stuff, but don't tell anyone. Ugh, that's a burden. And the juicier it is, the heavier the load, the yoke. Today's TED Talk. Viktor Frankl in the gray. So yesterday we did Viktor Frankl. Pursuit of happiness. Right? Today it's the gray. So Viktor Frankl's main point was that there are things that happen to us externally, but we get to choose how we respond. And that the purpose of life is to find meaning in life. And I'd say, like I said yesterday, Viktor Frankl almost nailed it, except he didn't know or accept Jesus as God in the form of man. So he took Jesus out of the equation and had a distant God and said, our purpose, the reason for living, is to give meaning to our life. It's our search for meaning. Okay, today we're drilling way down. We're going from 1,000 feet to half an inch. And he's saying, he's asking the question, or the video is asking the question, how do you find meaning when you have no meaning? When there's no reason to keep living, how do you find meaning in that experience? And they use the movie The Gray to illustrate that point. So The Gray is a movie about some guys that work, I think, for an oil company. They're on their way home in a plane. The plane crashes and they disturb a pack of wolves. And the movie is about the wolves chasing him down, picking him off one by one, till the only guy left is Liam Neeson. But the ironic part is, at the beginning of the movie, he was about to commit suicide. So the one guy left is the one guy who had no reason to keep going. His wife died of cancer, whatever, some kind of disease. And he hated his life of hunting wolves. So he was a wolf hunter. He hated that life. He was literally going to kill himself, seconds away from blowing his brains out. And as the movie progresses, he is the one who's keeping everybody going. And then he's the only guy left. And he's at different parts reaching out to God. If you're real, show me something. Show me you're real. And then ultimately, when the universe stays silent, when God says nothing, he says, fuck it, I'll do it myself. So he uses Father Joe Riley's prayer. Fuck it, I'll do it myself. A prayer of release and surrender. And so he did that, and the movie ends with his final confrontation with the wolf, which gets to Viktor Frankl's point, which is even in suffering where there is no reason, we can find a reason. And we do that by accepting that we can't change our circumstances. We can't change where we are, what's happening. So we are forced to change ourselves. And that's how we create meaning. We're forced to change ourselves. And so for Viktor Frankl, upon accepting you're in a concentration camp, you can't get out, and there's no reason, there's no path you can take to increase survival, to believe you will ever be coming out alive. When you're faced in that situation, why don't we just give up? How do we find meaning to keep going? And one of the things he uses in there is the quote from Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche. I like saying it, Nietzsche. It's not Nietzsche, it's Nietzsche, as in cherry. He who has a why to live, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. So if you have a reason to live, you can bear the circumstances you're in. And that line is used in this expose of the movie The Gray, of how do you keep going when there is no going. So he says, we must never forget that we may also find meaning in life even when confronted with a hopeless situation, when facing a fate that cannot be changed. For what then matters is to bear witness to the uniquely human potential at its best, which is to transform a personal tragedy into a triumph, to turn one's predicament into a human achievement. When we're no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. It is we ourselves who must answer the questions that life asks of us. And to these questions, we can respond only by being responsible for our existence. So we don't ask, what is the question of life? Life asks us, what is the meaning of your life? And in accepting this challenge to suffer bravely, life has a meaning up to the last moment, and it retains this meaning literally to the end. So in the beginning, at any moment, man must decide for better or worse what will be the monument of his existence. And in the movie The Gray, as Liam Neeson is facing the thing he's been running from. He's the last guy. He remembers a poem on a wall sitting on his father's lap when he was just a young kid. Once more into the fray, into the last good fight I'll ever know. Live and die on this day. Live and die on this day. Okay, so let's just quickly, do we have time? Yeah, we've got a little bit of time to break that down. Once more into the fray, what does that mean? Well, the fray is like the fight. It's into the uncertainty, into the chaos. Once more into that. Once more into the breach. Okay, once more into the fray. ... Ponder that. Into the last good fight I'll ever know. So, accepting one's circumstances and moving forward. What does that mean? Into the last good fight. The last means there's going to be no more. And it's going to be a good one. It is going to be a struggle. And it's going to be painful. It's not going to be fun. I'll ever know. So once it's over, that's it. Into the last good fight I'll ever know. Once more into the fray, into the chaos of the last good fight I'll ever know. Does that mean death? No, it means it's the last good fight. There's not going to be anything else like this ever again. Now we make the turn, so that's period. Live and die on this day. And then it's repeated, live and die on this day. So is he repeating the same thing, or is it two different meanings? Live and die on this day. So one could be a statement of fact. It's a statement of fact, live and die on this day. I'm alive right now, and I'm not going to be alive on this day. This is the last day. This is the moment of my existence. This is the monument of my existence. Live and die on this day. Fully into the last good fight. I'm living in the last good fight, and I'll ever know dying. And then the last could be a statement of fact, or it could be reversed. Once more into the fray, into the last good fight I'll ever know. Today is the day I'm going to die. And then today is the day I'm really going to experience life and the end on this day. And it will never happen again on this day. And then after a little bit of the movie ends, as he's just lunging, lurching out to fight the thing he's been running from for all this time. Right. So, what say you, Walter? How are we doing for time? Okay, good. We are at, that's it. Okay, people, Hasta la vista. And goodbye, Miss Trinkle.